ridiculous.
Well, here's the thing.
Maybe. Sometimes.
Tell me about this. I want to know more.
Oh, yeah. No.
Holy cow.
We've had a lot of fun.
So, Nicole, you've had all sorts of summer travels, and they are continuing for at least some members of your family.
They are, yeah. My daughter and I spent the last couple weeks in and around Australia, which was fantastic. Yeah,
Sounds nice.
Yeah, it was great, except that it's winter down there, and very few people have central heating. So, yeah, it was, for us pampered people up here with central heating.
You've become thin-blooded Californians, haven't you?
I know. My resilient Canadian self was whimpering.
Oh, no.
in the cold. But it was a fantastic trip. And but no sooner did we get back last week, my daughter and my son turned around yesterday and headed up to Canada. So yes, their travels are continuing. Her travels are continuing. So she went up to see. Well, they both went up to see some family and some friends and to hang out. So it wasn't initially planned. It was kind of a last minute decision based on friend availability at the beginning of school.
Lack
of friend availability, because this is the summer of all of her friends having boyfriends. So yeah, so she's like, nope, I'm out of here. I'm not gonna sit around.
This will not work for me.
No.
Nope.
That's an awkward phase. Everybody has a boyfriend but you.
Oh, yes.
Nice to have travel destinations to substitute.
Yes, and nice to have friends who will take them in at the last minute. So we had several of our close friends scrambling to get them from the airport and have them overnight, and they were very helppful. So much appreciated, because now my kids are up there and enjoying themselves and getting all sorts of pictures and of how they're not coming home.
So now you can recuperate in peace from your plague.
Yes.
Oh yes, that was as predicted, and as we have I guess hypothesized in the past, plain plague is a real thing and does exist, because excuse me, I have
there it is.
And she can prove it.
I can prove it.
This is like the dog barking in the background when we were talking about dog shaming.
Yes, exactly.
The cough comes out.
So yeah, I just the minute I stepped on that plane, oh my Lord, I knew I was coming down with something, and it has not gone away. So as a result, well, I mean, we pushed through the Australia trip, but when the kids said they wanted to go to Canada, I said no, I'm going to stay behind, which is fine, because I've got a whole zoo at my house that needs to be looked after and fed daily. So that is my job. So
how are the cats and the dog getting along?
You know what? Surprisingly, one of the cats and the dog are getting along quite well. They actually go near each other and sleep near each other.
Aww.
The other cat is not having anything of it. She is not impressed with Missy.
Aww.
So yeah, and so they're doing well because they they've had some time to adjust. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's still chaotic at this house. Nothing's changed. People are coming and going. Cats are around. Dog, fish. It's been a crazy summer. So yeah.
Wow, it sounds like fun though.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, if you like chaos, sure.
Well,
if you're into unpredictability and
yeah.
I sort of like the idea on going on a trip with your kid, and then coming home, and then your kid going on another trip while you get to just stay home and relax. That's sort of like the two halves, lots of family togetherness, and then, okay, now go away.
Now go away. You head off. Although it would be much more fun if I didn't have plain plague.
Well, yes, that's true.
right? I mean, I would probably be out enjoying myself a lot more, but
yeah. But be
now
glad
I'm just
that
staring.
It's you and not her. Because if she had come home with plague, then you would be having to wait on her.
Most definitely.
And it would be all your fault.
Yes.
Oh, of course. Of course. Well, you know what? I have to say, she did do a good job of avoiding it, because when we got on the plane, she very shamelessly pulled out her handy wipes and started wiping down her entire area, including the wall that she was leaning against.
Oh.
And I was looking at her laughing. And of course, I'm the one that gets sick, right? Because we had to spend like 15 hours on that plane. So she was making sure that her area was tickety-boo.
That was
and
very
she's
smart.
not going to get sick. I know, right? And there I was like, oh my God, Kristen, you're so dramatic. And then, of course, I'm the one that gets sick. But
well, if she were a good daughter, she would have wiped yours down too.
Oh, yeah. No,
even while you were laughing at her. So
I was laughing at her, and she wanted to, reserve her resources, conserve her resources in case she needs it for later on. So, yeah, and so she did the same thing on the way back home too, and I wasn't laughing as much.
No,
then. I was like, dang.
Wow. Well, good advice for anybody else traveling this summer.
Oh, take your handy wipes.
Sanitize your space.
Yes, sanitize the space.
You don't want to bring home any little viral souvenirs.
Exactly. So, yes, it's been a very crazy, chaotic summer thus far, and I'm happy to have some predictability, such as this podcast.
Yes. We hope we play that role for more than just us. But for all those of you who look forward to our podcast every week, hello, are you out there? Hello and welcome to Parenting Roundabout, a weekly podcast about the things that parents are talking about, obsessing about, and complaining about right now. I'm Terry Morrow, and with me today are Nicole Eridix.
Hello.
Up from her sickbed.
Yep. Propped up.
Yay. And Catherine Aleko.
Hello.
Today on the podcast, we're going to talk about time-wasting games on our speed round. We're going to shout out some stuff we like on the Roundabout Roundup and do some shameless self-promotion. But first, another edition of judging other people's parenting. Could there be a funner game, you guys? Nicole, appropriately to your recent travels, you have our topic here. What is the story to which we are going to cluck and tisk?
Mm-hmm. Well, as I mentioned earlier, having been on a 15-hour flight, I don't understand how someone could do this to other people. Not to mention their kids. Although I did not see it on my flight personally, but I have heard of these stories before, and my husband has seen it happen. But I was reading an article on Pop Sugar, and it was a mom who flies first class and puts her two boys in economy. And she says that she deserves the first class accommodations because it's a huge treat that she's worked for, and that the money that she saves by not having her kids in upgraded seats goes towards making their vacation much better when they get to their destination. So,
that was my favorite part. Like, the money saving. Like, wait a minute.
I know.
Maybe, how about if you use the money from your first class seat as well? Think how much further that
and
would
make it
go.
better for, all around. I know. So I've never seen this. I don't know if you've seen it in your travels, but I definitely have heard of it. And honestly, I don't understand how. Okay, I'm being totally judgy. Maybe there's, good reason for it, but how does one do that? Like, kind of abdicate their responsibility for, a portion of the trip and expect that the kids will either A, look after themselves, or B, the crew will look after them.
What was the age of the kids?
10, no, what do we have here? 10 and 12.
What are the limits for kids traveling by themselves? Would they be old enough to travel by themselves if their mother wasn't on the plane at all?
No.
Oh, travel by themselves, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
If they were traveling
you would
without
have to
parents,
pay extra. I mean, they would be unaccompanied minors, and you'd have to pay for that service.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, the thing is that, and I know this from flying fairly often with my kids, there is never a guarantee that you're going to sit with your kid. Like, they assign seats, and I have been assigned seats away from my kids.
Yeah.
And they sometimes will try to fix it, or, we get on the plane and we ask if people want to trade or whatever. But we're talking like a few rows apart, not one is in first class and one isn't. And my kids actually like to sit together, and, instead of it being like one parent and one child and then the other parent and the other child, they would rather be together. And we do that, and it's fine. But again, I'm not 30, 40 rows away. I'm fairly close by that I can still be supervising my own kids. So, yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think 10 and 12, it's borderline, that they can pretty much mind their own business. But I have to think that these are very long flights that we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, she's British, so depending on where they're going. I mean,
if you're going to bother paying for first class, like, you're not going to do it for a 45-minute flight, right?
No. But I mean, the thing is, though, is that first class is a whole other world unto itself.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, she would have like, if she's up in first class and her kids are back in economy, it's not like she's...
Oh, yeah.
She's in a whole other world up there. I mean, they make it very separate. And, in addition to the curtain, there's eye masks and, it's just especially if you're in one of those new, like in United, they have the Polaris beds where you can lie back and just have a snooze, and your kids are like 40 rows back. It's just, I don't know. I mean, maybe they're used to it. I don't know. And see, my kids would not sit together. They would be fighting the whole time. Even now, like when they flew up to Canada, they asked for separate seats. So legitimately, my son was in a row ahead of my daughter.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they were both in window seats.
They looked so cute and friendly in the picture you put online, but is it like, after that picture, it was like, bye, sis.
Yeah, exactly.
You're on your own.
Pretty much what it was, because after they went through security, they both went their separate ways to go get lunch, and then they came back, boarded the plane, and then got into separate seats. But you know what? It works for them, so...
But he didn't go to first class and leave her in coach, so...
Well, and also, she's not 10 years old.
Right.
Right.
That's true.
I don't know. And I like just, with, traveling is hard in itself, and it's not just about, putting the kids in seats and having them sit there for several hours on their own. There's a certain, form of plane etiquette. And if I'm assuming these kids have probably traveled a lot with their mother, but, there definitely has to be there are definitely some ins and outs of traveling responsibly and not infringing on other people's space. Yeah. And so it makes you wonder if the kids are well versed in plane etiquette. For example, I had did I tell you about the yogi master on my flight coming home?
No.
Yeah, this guy, I mean, we paid for extra money to be in the exit row, and granted, we did get our space most of the time, but at several points during the trip, this man, probably in his late 20s, early 30s, comes over, sits down in front of us, like on the, on the floor, and starts to meditate and do his yoga. So at first I was like, what is, excuse me, you're in my space.
Right.
And then my daughter's like, Mom, maybe he has anxiety and this helps him get through the trip. You have to be, you have to think about it from his side and his perspective. Maybe this is helping him handle the length of the trip. And I'm like, yeah, but he's like sitting on my feet practically doing his yoga.
Yeah, would she have felt that if he was in her carefully sanitized space?
Exactly.
Excuse me, sir, I just wiped that down.
Yeah.
Please not touch anything.
Can you please get up and move? So that was kind of a bit odd. So
yeah.
Well, Tara, you sounded like you were maybe going to stick up for the first class lady.
I'm always contrarian, right? You know, as with so many things that are fun to be judgy about, we don't really have all the information here. You know, have her kids ever traveled by themselves before? How much experience do they have traveling? Is this the first time they've ever been on a plane? Or are they, like, pretty good independent travelers? You know, there's 10 and 12-year-olds who are more mature on a plane than I am, and there's 10 and 12-year-olds who you would never leave by yourselves.
Right.
So, you know, you don't really know their maturity level, you don't know their issues. I mean, I have kids in their 20s who I wouldn't want to sit away from in a plane because they need a certain level of reassurance and a certain level of help with things. You know, if the plane ever assigned us seats apart from each other when my kids were little, we could never let that stand. We would even call and say, make sure we have seats together because my kids have disabilities. So I wish I knew more about this particular 10 and 12-year-old.
Right.
I have to say I'm not necessarily offended. If they were 3, yeah, that would be a problem. If they were 6 or 7 or 8, yeah, probably that would be a problem. It's starting to get to an age where I can conceive of a kid just sitting on an airplane and staring at a screen for 10 hours.
I suppose.
So it seems possible. I think the airline would be absolutely in its rights to charge her the minor flying alone rate, which I bet is hugely less than 2 more seats in first class. So if you want the stewardess to be making sure your kids are okay, pay that little that
Yeah,
amount.
but the stewardesses aren't getting any extra money for it.
Well,
It's
but I
the
mean,
airline.
if those kids could fly alone, and you pay what you would pay if those kids were flying alone, then there's an infrastructure set up for that. The fact that you're up there, that's for you to
but the stewardesses
reconcile
aren't-
with your own soul. You have fulfilled your obligations to the airline and your fellow passengers, I think.
No, not not the crew.
Well, again,
on the plane.
would you say you can never send a 10 and 12-year-old by themselves? If you could send those kids by themselves as unaccompanied minors, then the fact that you were on the plane is a moral quandary for you to deal with, I think. If you feel like 10 and 12-year-olds should never be in coach by themselves at all, ever, then it shouldn't matter whether their parent is with them or not. You know what I mean? There is an infrastructure set up for kids to be by themselves in a plane. That's not a never seen thing. We're just judgy about it because their mother was there and should be suffering in coach with them and the rest of us. But
Or bring your kids up to first class.
first class is really nice, man. If I could afford first class.
Oh,
I've been in
know.
it a couple of times on somebody else's dime, and, you know, sometimes you just need a treat. Come on.
Well, yeah,
I mean, maybe it's a whole moral issue for me.
But I think that it's perfectly justifiable that she should pay whatever people sending kids to fly by themselves should pay. That, I think, is for sure. You don't get to do that for free just because you happen to be on the plane. But past that, I think if our kids are okay, you know,
yeah, I really think it's a borderline age.
It depends a lot on the kid. As we
It
say,
is.
all the boring time. Every kid is different. Every parent is different. Maybe she's the kind of parent who sits there and drinks alcohol for 10 hours while her kids do whatever the hell they want, in which case, go back up to first class, lady. You know, it's like, you're not doing us any good here. You don't know about these people. So,
well, the way
I don't
the
know.
article's written, it's
Yeah.
very...
Well, it's written to shame.
It doesn't do a good job of explaining the situation.
No.
It
No.
definitely paints her in a certain light.
Yes. Because details are less fun.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But, I
the
mean, I
article
would-
is very like, let them eat cake. You know,
Yes.
I'm going to be up here in first class because I can afford it, and if you don't
Right.
like it, it's too bad because
Yeah.
you're back in coach, so you really don't have any say in the matter.
But, I mean, if you ever had I mean, I don't know that this is the situation here, but have you ever had the experience of knowing that your kid was capable of doing something that maybe one might not expect a kid of that age to be able to do? You know, as the parent, that the kid can do this, and other people are just looking at the
Right.
number.
Yeah.
So could be the possibility here. She may know that her kids are perfectly fine. It may not be a situation of, I'm sending my hyperactive kids to go tear up the rest of the back of the plane. Bring them to me when we land. Right. Maybe they're okay.
I think maybe if the article had been her saying, guys, I know they're fine, and I know my kids, and this is what works for us, then that would have come off very differently from her just saying, hey, I want to sit in first class, so I'm going to just do that. Because that's the impression she gave.
Yeah. The other thing I thought about this, the article had her quotes from her story, right? And then comments that different people had made, complaining about her and supporting her. I want to know if any of the people who complained have ever spoken out in favor of free-range parenting. These parents these days, they watch their kids too closely. These kids have no freedom. They should be able to run and do what they want. You know what? Put that 10 and 12-year-old right in front of you guys. Right behind you. They're going to kick your seats for 10 hours, but they're independent. They're doing what they want to do. They got freedom. You hear so much about how helicopter parents are ruining the world. But then the first time somebody's kid is there without a parent and inconveniencing these three people, it's like, where's their mother? Why isn't their mother here? Yeah. They shouldn't be here alone.
But
so you know what? Pick a column.
Even in the days of free-range parenting, which was the 70s, I never sat away from my parents on a plane. They were pretty free-range parents. But I was pretty, I was within arms.
Did they have an option?
Kind of.
If they could have afforded first class? But no.
Yeah, no, exactly. Okay, no, maybe. But no. I don't know. I think it's more of a parenting. Yeah, it definitely is I guess it's how you rationalize it in your mind and your kids.
Yeah.
And...
I just wish I had more information. Because if her kids are terrors, then yes, that's an awful thing to do to your fellow passengers. If her kids are pretty well behaved and are just going to sit and look at the movies they've downloaded on their phones or play games or whatever, who cares really?
Okay, well, and this is kind of
as long as the plane doesn't crash, in which case she's going to wish she was with them.
Well, that's
what would go through my mind when I contemplated it.
Here. This is kind of the unspoken part about it, is that there's a reason I like to sit near my kids. And it's not just to keep an eye on them, okay?
You want to be able to say, I love you, as the plane's going down.
Well, no, actually, you know what? When we were heading over to Australia, we were crossing a part of the ocean, and there was extreme turbulence. And even the stewardesses and stewards were buckled in. So it's bad when they're not walking around, right? And it went on for a good 20, 25 minutes, and it was extreme. And my daughter was gripping my hand, and she was she was scared. She was terrified. I admit I was a little bit worried too, but I understand why turbulence happens, and it kind of helps me rationalize the whole thing. But she was scared and was gripping my hand and was worried and fretting, and so I was there to reassure her. But so then so that kind of creeps into my mind too. Well, what if your kids are scared? What if something happens and you're not there for them? And they can't get up out of their seat and run to you. I suppose they could, but
you can't pass that curtain into first class.
It's the sacred curtain to first class.
Do not pass the iron curtain of first class.
Everybody has to stay in their seats. You can't run back to them either.
No.
Well.
So
I can think of some flights where I really wish I could have gone up to first class.
Yeah.
Can I just come sit here for a few minutes? My kids are driving me crazy. They should have a couple of seats in first class that you can kind of rotate in and out of. You can book 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah, pay by the minute, right?
And you leave your husband with the kids, and you go up and somebody serves you cashews in a golden bowl. And you take a breath, and you wipe your hands on a hot towel, and you go back.
And then you're prepared to go back and face everything.
Just kind of, there's soft music playing, and just refresh yourself. I think airlines ought to look into that. I think they could make a little change doing that.
Right. Now
are you feeling stressed? Would you like to sit in first class for 5 minutes?
They charge you for the snack boxes and the drinks and everything. They should charge you for 10-15 minute visit to first class.
I gotta think they'd be able to pick up some. If they have some empty seats in first class, they could pick up a little change doing that.
Yeah.
I'll put it on my credit card. It's a travel expense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Give me 10 minutes of that extra leg room and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
Glass of wine in a crystal goblet instead of a plastic cup.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should move
yes.
to our speed round. And now that we're talking about how to pass the time on an airplane, because we thought for our speed round, just say you're on a 14-hour flight and you don't have any kids to entertain because
I would be sleeping
because you put them in first class and you sat in economy. Do you if you're playing games, and of course this could be anywhere, not just on a plane.
Right.
Do you tend...
Like while you're doing a podcast.
Right. Do you go for the word games? Do you go for number and math type games? Or... I didn't know what to call these, but spatial games like Candy Crush. Or I don't know what you call Sandbox, because we know that that's a popular one.
That's what I'm doing right
Coloring
now.
games. So what kind of games are your preferred style? Nicole?
Well, if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you know what game I prefer.
Candy Crush.
I'm definitely more of a Candy Crush kind of person, I guess a spatial game, but I'm also a word game kind of person too. So anything with like numbers or math, forget it.
Yeah, you're not going to find me playing Sudoku at any
that's
point.
Personal torture. I'm not doing that.
Even in an
I
emergency.
do that in the newspaper. It's the only reason I still get a newspaper is because I get the puzzles.
Oh, no.
But not on my phone. I don't play those.
Yeah, no, I need to be able to play the game, but still think about other things. Like I can't have all of my brain power going to that game. Needs to be kind of, need to be able to manage several different things in my head at the same time.
And Candy Crush allows you to do that?
Yeah. It's pretty mindless.
I don't know.
See, I'm talking to you and playing at the same time.
There you go. We're multitasking here.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mine is like 100% word games and Sandbox.
And Sandbox.
Yeah.
But Sandbox I find it more of, like what Nicole said, that I can do it without thinking.
Yeah.
And the word games, I find myself, not quite paying attention to whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing. I need a little more monotasking when it comes to those.
Yeah, Sandbox, you can be playing it while pretending to listen to your kids telling you things. Oh, well.
Interesting.
Speaking of Sandbox, Catherine, you still do Sandbox, right? Have you always been able to tap on, the numbers across the bottom? Have you always been able to tap on them twice and they take you to the next place where that is? Or is that a new thing?
I have never done that. I did not know that was a thing.
I did it accidentally, and it did it because I'm always searching around where I know there's one more of these somewhere. Where is it? And the other day I just kind of accidentally tapped on it twice and it jumped to a patch of them.
Interesting.
If this is a new thing, Sandbox people, thank you so much. And if it's something I didn't know about, I feel really dumb.
Well, but consider me equally dumb because I didn't know that either. Well,
good, because the last thing I didn't know about was that it X's out the colors across the bottom when they're done, which I never realized. So that was something that had always been. Okay, that I did not know. So all these things that are enriching my experience of Sandbox.
And once again, this is like every other Hamilton conversation we've had. I have no clue what you're talking about.
I will move on to other things now, Nicole. Yes.
No. Feel free to talk because I'm playing Candy Crush.
Okay. Yeah, Candy Crush, I have gone in and out of a number of times, but I always get to the point where I feel like it's rigged. Because, they can really serve you anything on that, and I sometimes feel like they make it impossible to win sometimes, and
I know.
I don't know. It makes me mad. So I like things that are more in my control. So I like, besides Sandbox, there's a game called Flow Free, which is also kind of a spatial thing. There's like a series of dots on a grid, and you have to match up the two dots of the same color in such a way that you fill the entire grid. So, and as it gets harder, there's more and more dots, or they're in more and more awkward places, and they keep coming up with new variations of it.
Right.
Some of which I don't like as much, but the basic game and the first two that they put out, I really like a lot, and I play those a lot, and I find it really, really relaxing. And also, when I figure it out, I feel really good. Some of the more complicated ones. The only problem is, and I have relatively small fingers, so I don't know how people with, bigger hands do it, but sometimes I try to do it all in one go, and you can reset it and then do it again. But sometimes accidentally I'll hit a line and it goes away, or something goes wrong, and then I don't get the star. I just get the check mark, and it's not as satisfying. So then I have to go back and do it again.
I always
but I like that one
question,
very much.
Like, remember when Angry Birds was such a thing, that how could you play it on a phone, not an iPad? Right. Because it's just way too small. Like, how do you get your fingers to do what you want them to do on a phone? Yes,
that is frustrating. But in terms of, I do like word and number games, but I do something about filling in crossword puzzle squares or Sudoku squares, or I think there's another one, Kakuro or something like that I do on newsprint that in pen. That's very satisfying to me. So I don't do those on my phone very much. It just, for some reason, it's not the same. I did do Words with Friends for a while, and then I got frustrated. There was not keeping score in the right way somehow, and put somebody over me who should not have been over me, so I stopped playing it.
Words with Friends gets a little, I don't know, it used to be really biased at one point. I felt like.
Yeah.
I mean, you could get stuck in months of just getting vowels and no consonants.
Yes. See, this is
so
the
mad
problem I
about
have
that.
with any game where you're dependent on what you get throughout the game. Something that gives me the stuff, and then, I mean, like the flow free, it sets up the dots, and it's then up to me to figure out how to connect them. It's not constantly serving me stuff and complications.
Right.
The ones that do, like Words with Friends or like Candy Crush and that ilk, at some point I get to feeling put upon.
A little humpy.
Somebody's out to get me. I'm only getting vowels. Why do I have a whole bunch of X's and nothing else?
I know.
It's a conspiracy.
It's a conspiracy.
Like, seriously, with Catherine, like, for a good year, all I got was vowels.
Yes.
And Catherine would just, like, beat the pants off me every time I played her.
And there's, like, no appeal. There's no way to fix this. You're just
Nothing.
at the mercy of the computer.
And I just wanted to say to her, I'm not really, like, that bad. Like, I do know.
Yes. It's embarrassing then when you're playing with friends, isn't it?
The funny thing is that when I play Words with Friends, like, for each individual move, I am very concerned with getting, the maximum number of points and making the best word and doing the best. But I forget instantly if I win or lose. Like, I really...
Oh, I know.
I don't even care, honestly, most of the time if I win or lose. It's about that each word at a time is, like, kind of all that matters.
That
is very healthy. And I would be able to be that way too if it didn't keep a list, right? It shows you how many, and then it shows your ranking according to all your other friends. And if you're doing really, really well for a while, and then you get one of those games where all you're getting is vowels, and then you drop down and you feel like people are going to say, well, what happened to you, high and mighty? Ho, 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 I see your rank number.
See, I feel like nobody notices that except for you.
Well, I think if I was the only one who noticed it, they probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah, if you're beating somebody, if you're winning every game, come on, the other person's got to notice, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of humiliating.
I share a darker view of human nature than you, Catherine.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just my friends. I don't know.
Well, right now I'm very annoyed because I have a friend who sometimes invites me to challenges on Fitbit. So basically it's like, who can get the most steps. And it's very hard to say no. Like, if you want to just sit it out, you can't just say, like, no thank you. You just have to ignore it. And, then you have, like, that notification sitting there, which really bugs me. So most of the time I just do it. And right now the one I'm in is not counting my steps at all. And it's really making me mad. Like, I even posted to the group, like, does anyone know why this is not working? Because this is how many steps I have in real life, and they're not showing up here at all, and I'm really upset. Just that was my way of telling them all, like, I am not as lame as it looks right now.
So see, now you got carte blanche, because next time they challenge you, just don't do anything. Keep saying, my thing's not updating. It's like that last time. I'm stepping and and nothing's happening. Yeah. And they'll all believe you. Mm-hmm. Or not. Maybe they don't believe you now either. But
they might not.
Either way, you got covered.
Yeah. Well, we traveled, we stepped rather far away from our original question on this speed round, so we'll wrap it up and just remind you that you can hear a new speed round every Wednesday through Friday.
Hi, we hope you're enjoying this episode of Parenting Roundabout. We're not one of those podcasts that's trying to sell you websites or mattresses or meal kits. I mean, we totally would, but no one's asked us yet.
There is, however, something you can do that costs you nothing, but will put a little change in our pockets. Listen to our podcast on the Radio Public app. Download the app to your iPhone or Android device and listen to Parenting Roundabout there, and we'll get paid for each listen. Plus a little more if you listen a lot.
We think you'll enjoy listening to all your podcasts on this app, but if you could at least listen to Parenting Roundabout there, we'd be very grateful. Now, back to the episode. And now we bring you some of the things we've read and or seen or used recently that we want to shout out and share with you. Nicole, what do you got?
I just wanted to shout out a site called Viator. I think it's Viator. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. Viator.com.
Okay.
It's a site that you can go to book tours, guided tours, in cities that you may be traveling to or visiting. Mm-hmm. And we booked, Chris and I booked a tour, half-day tour through them for Sydney when we were in Sydney, Australia. And it was a fantastic tour, and it was very reasonably priced. The site itself is very easy to use. They're probably like a broker for these tour companies, but anyway, it just made choosing a tour so easy, and it turned out to be a great tour. So I highly recommend it if you're traveling this summer or beyond, and you don't feel like figuring out the city bus schedules yourself, or getting from one place to another, and you want to do a tour. Check out this site.
I've used it before too. I used it.
Have you?
We booked a tour once in Chicago, like a walking tour, and it worked out great.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I was really happy with it. So that is my shout out today.
Cool.
Sounds nice. Catherine, what have you got?
So I don't know if you've ever listened to this podcast, Terry, but we have heard. Terry's recommended to me before, or she's mentioned to me before, this podcast that's on the Maximum Fun Network called My Brother, and Me. And it's just these three brothers, and they're very funny, and they answer, like, they pull out from Yahoo Answers, like, these super random things, and they just kind of riff on them. Anyway, one of the brothers, Justin, is married to a doctor, and they have this medical history podcast, and it's called Sawbones.
Oh.
And they pick a topic, and, people send them in ideas too. And Sydney, the doctor, goes into the medical history of it all. And Justin is there as, like, the layman, and also he just says funny things. Like, I listened to one that was about ambulances, and, how, and it used to be that up until, like, the 60s and 70s, in some places, most areas did not have ambulances, but instead they used hearses for transporting people who were sick. And and Sydney was like, think about it. What vehicle do you have that, it's very easy for someone to lie down in and stay in that position? And Justin said, an ice cream truck. And that's just kind of the way it goes on this show. Aww. So I saw it mentioned somewhere, and I just started poking around a little bit, because you don't need to, it's not really timely, so you can listen to any episode whenever you feel like it. And it's fun.
Neat. Well, I'll have to check that out.
Sawbones.
Yeah, I also have a podcast, though somewhat more serious tone. A while back, when I started using the Radio Public app, which everybody should be using to listen to our podcast, please, 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 I was just kind of randomly looking around for new podcasts to listen to fill up my queue. And I started looking for religious podcasts just to see if there was something, I could listen to make me feel good about all the time I spend listening to podcasts. It's spiritual, So I found this podcast called Pray More Novenas. And what it is every so often they do a novena. You get the prayers in your podcast queue every day for 9 days. And then there's usually, I think, a little prayer afterwards. And you can also go onto their website and sign up to get email notifications too. So you really do remember to do it every day for 9 days. It's not constantly. They do one and then a little time goes by and then they do another one. But I really like it. I like the feeling that every so often I'm having this prayer experience with these other people and that I have these ways that remind me to do it. It's very nice to listen to the podcast episodes and have somebody saying the prayers, and they always give you time to add your own intention. And, if you've always wanted to pray more novenas and just kind of never were sure when to do it, this is a good way to kind of get into it. If you have something that's particularly on your mind right now that you want to pray about, you can go onto their website and put down your particular issues, and they will pray for that as well. So, add a little holiness to your podcast rounds, and feel good about yourself, and maybe get some peace on some issues you're dealing with.
Nice.
Good. Well, for our final segment today, we're going to do a little shameless self-promotion and direct you to some of the things on our sites that we think you should take a look at. Catherine, what do you have for us this week?
I just thought I would mention my my sort of professional page on Facebook, which is still, the title of it is still tied to my old site, unabout.com, which is about family fitness. So you can find it at facebook.com/aboutfamilyfitness. But I try to post about the podcast there every week. And if I thought that, people were going there often, then I would post more stuff about just what I'm writing or anything that's going on. So check out my...
Catherine will talk to you if you go visit her.
I will.
Yeah, I feel the same. I have my little professional Facebook page too, which I have just now. I did an update for something I wrote quite a while ago called Love Notes for Special Parents. They're little inspirational messages for parents of kids with special needs. And so I just did a kind of a design freshen up of those, because what I had been circulating before were sort of like downloads of downloads of downloads. So you can actually read these graphics. It's very nice. And I sort of did them for a website redesign I'm playing around with over on Squarespace, but you know what? It may be several years before I get finished with that. So I put them as an album on my little special needs Facebook group. So we will have a link to that in the show notes. If you are feeling in need of inspiration or wanting to share inspiration with others, go check them out.
Good. And I'm just going to mention a resource that I have for the inclusive class that I don't really talk about much anymore, but was kind of big back in the day. It's my LiveBinder for the inclusive class. If you're not familiar with LiveBinders, it's kind of an online place to collate information about something or resources, and of course mine has to do with inclusion. I think Terry, you told me about it way back when.
Did I? I don't think so. Maybe.
I think you did. I think you mentioned this LiveBinder thing.
Many great technical resources have entered into and fled out of my memory.
There you go.
Could well be.
Well, this one in particular has stuck around. I don't mention it a lot, but, let's make a comeback here and see if we can get people going there. So it's just look for the inclusive class on livebinders.com.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of Parenting Roundabout. We hope you enjoyed it and that you'll join us every week. You can listen to podcast episodes on Radio Public or download them from Apple Podcasts. Please subscribe so that you get all of our podcasts and mini podcasts.
You can also follow us on Twitter, where I am at Nicole Erdix, Catherine is at CHaleko, and Terry is at Momitude. You can also follow the podcast on Twitter at Roundabout Chat, and look for us on Facebook, Pinterest, Tumblr, YouTube, and Instagram too.
Best of all, stop by our podcast page at parentingroundabout.com and read recaps, find links on everything we've mentioned, and talk back in the comments. Thanks to John Morin at johnjmorin.com for providing our in and out music. And I wish everyone a great week.